This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice.
Question, Emerald. Do people know who Ava Yemeni is?
I think so.
If you don't, just keep it that way. I think your life's better. It's fine. He's basically just a big fan of mine who loves both my comedy and my advocacy for Palestinian rights. He's really into that. Do people know who @PR Guy are?
Especially if you don't know who PR Guy is, keep it that way. I envy you.
I envy you your life. Well,
but if you know his identity.
Oh, yes. Get in touch. Rebel News' Ava Yemeni will use the courts to attempt to force Twitter to reveal the identity of Twitter troll PR Guy, arguing the account was reminiscent of communist-style propaganda.
No, that's us.
I know. Yeah, why isn't he trying to expose us or take us to court? We don't have the reach of PR Guy. We could only dream.
True.
Mr. Yemeni is set to take defamation action against the person or people behind PR Guy. Again, I love that. The idea that it's a huge team operating this Twitter account with 55,000 followers whose profile is Troy McClure from The Simpsons. And is getting communism done. Twitter has refused to unveil the identity unless ordered to by a court. Mr. Yemeni said the account had now risen to such popularity that it had become an authority on Victorian political discourse. It's reminiscent of communist-style propaganda, he told Sky News. They basically defamed anybody that had legitimate criticism. The danger there was how popular and what an authority they became in the political discourse in Victoria. They hold one of the most powerful political accounts in the country on Twitter.
But that's true. It just doesn't. Who fucking cares?
Who fucking cares?
And it is propaganda. It's certainly not communist-style propaganda. I fucking wish.
PR Guy, yes, 55,000 followers. To put that in context, I'm on 86 or something. I'd have no power.
Oh, cool, man. We get it.
Well, I'm just saying.
No, but I would argue, you're one of those, you have a lot of followers because you're a celebrity. He has a lot of followers because people pay attention to what he says on Twitter. I think PR Guy is often the fucking main character on Twitter.
He does love to get shit trending, and if he says, let's get this trending, Albo is my daddy, #Dan Andrews, fuck me in the bum.
Yeah, he says stuff like that for sure, which you're also saying, but for some reason it doesn't trend.
Yeah, I can't pick up on that.
Yeah.
So if people don't know, it is this anonymous Twitter account that certainly was extremely active over the past couple of years because it was fiercely defensive of the Andrews government in Victoria, the state government's approach to the pandemic, and would regularly corral Labor stands, people who are very much on board Labor and think that Labor can do no wrong, to attack anyone, to get angry at all journalists who dare question any kind of response to COVID-19 and the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And it goes off, King. And now Ava Yemeni, who in 2018 launched a conservative event with Sydney Watson entitled No Snowflakes.
Interesting.
It's now using the court system to expose a big, powerful, scary Twitter account.
But he would be able to under the new government's proposed laws, right? About getting tech companies to reveal the identity of users.
I guess so. I guess that he could use that.
Yeah.
Is he a troll? Troll is such a, is PR Guy a troll?
What does that mean? I don't know if they're a troll. I feel like they're too big an account to be a troll.
Oh, right. It's a matter of size.
Well, it kind of is because people like that command a troll. You wouldn't say that Friendly Geordies is a troll, but he's absolutely, all he does is lead trolls.
Okay, so if you're the leader of the trolls.
I don't know. This is a fucking waste of time. The point, they both fucking suck, and I hope that they both fight till the death.
It's very hard to pick a winner in this little battle. Yeah. Just to give you a taste of PR Guy, right? When Adam Bandt tweeted about the Labor Party's climate policy, their, of course, emissions reduction target is less ambitious than they took to 2019 and won't actually do anything to stop 1.5 degrees of global warming, which is kind of the whole fucking point of climate fucking action. Adam Bandt tweets, Labor has given up on the science. PR Guy replies, Adam, you can demand Labor chases unicorn farts around a magical meadow, but it's not going to win an election in the current landscape. Noble ideas, but terrible tactics. The first step of tackling climate change is getting the foot in the door, not slamming it on yourself. And I replied, he's quoting the article written by the climate environmental editor Adam Morton. Whether or not the plan is sufficient to meaningfully address the problem seems like a pretty important question.
Wow.
To which PR Guy replies, Not really, Tom.
Not really.
You either bring an election-winning plan to the election or you don't. As brutal as the reality is, it's a reflection of the current political and media landscape.
Right. So, yeah, the Liberals are good and right then because they won.
I guess, yes, they're correct.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what their policies are. They won. They did it.
Other people saying, look, this is what the science says. PR guy says, the science says what the science says. The party that wins the next election will say what the electorate says. I don't like or enjoy this fact at all, but it's a reflection of a corrupt media environment. Get the foot in the door, then bring about the change. It is what it is.
I don't want to talk about this anymore, Tom.
Fucking get him, Harvey. I'm on Team
I'm
Yemeni.
so fucking sick of the Labor Party.
Oh, that's our catchphrase here at Serious Danger.
Talk about the Greens, that bunch of idiots.
This is the thing the Greens are founded on, this freakish, nutty sort of, caveman and woman view of the world.
They hate our society.
If you want the dole for life, free marijuana, vote Greens.
Frankly, I've always found the Greens to be a real serious danger to Australia.
Serious danger to Australia.
That's what you're listening to. This is Serious Danger, a podcast about green politics in Australia. I am Tom Ballard. With me is Emerald Moon.
I'm Emerald.
Loves our discussions.
You started me off annoyed.
I'm sorry. It's not a great start.
I'm not going to be smiley.
This is going to be a wonderful episode of the podcast, though. Don't worry. It's not an official Greens Party podcast. We're independent. And we're not official party spokespeople. I don't believe the Greens Party has endorsed the Yemeni's court case against at PR Guy 17, but
Not yet.
not yet.
I'm working on it.
We're working on that.
I'm talking to some people, in my back channels as a power broker.
This week's guest is the wonderful Mandy Nolan, the Greens candidate for the seat of Richmond, which is Emerald Moon territory. This is your hometown.
Me, that's my hometown. Yeah, she lives in Mullumbimby, just like that's where I grew up.
It's in New South Wales. That's Byron Bay country. She's an amazing lady. She's a comedian. Oh, excuse me.
No, that's the appropriate. Was that almost a vomit as you said the word comedian?
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. She makes jokes like this.
The other day my husband says, he goes, I wish I knew what turned you on. I went, unpack the fucking dishwasher. Like, if you unpack that dishwasher, mate, I'll be in the bedroom on all fours. Go unpack me now.
She's very funny. She's loose. She's very passionate. She's a feminist, and she is campaigning as the Greens candidate against the sitting MP, Justine Elliott, who's been there since 2004. And once again, I've never heard of you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in Australian politics and an MP and I haven't heard of you, what the fuck are you doing?
In one of my first uni classes, they were like, email your MP about something. And so I emailed her about marriage equality and she never replied.
And for that alone, she needs to be turfed out on Election Day 2022 and replaced by Mandy Nolan.
Yeah.
That's a great chat. That's coming up. But shall we begin by discussing the wonderful show that was on in Parliament this week? Once again, look, last week we had this dog shit culture war and we saw, the Australian Parliament at its best. And you were really happy about that, Emerald.
Yeah, I love it. Really good.
Well, this week, the increasingly desperate Morrison government continued fighting Australia's ongoing war on the worst people in the world. Thunder crash, please, Michael. Foreigners! Foreigners are like people, but they're from other countries, you see.
Oh, okay. I understand. So they're not quite like people then.
No, they're barely human beings.
Yeah. Okay.
Morrison government introduced the Strengthening Character Test Bill, which was legislation designed to increase the immigration minister's powers to deport non-citizens who had committed a crime. If you come to this bloody country, this beautiful country that's perfect, and you do something wrong and you go to jail, the government wants to kick you out and so that you will never return to teach you a lesson.
Rack off.
Rack off, losers. Changes to the bill would allow criminal offenders to be deported even if they receive less than a year's jail by applying the character test, not the actual sentence received, but whatever the maximum penalty for that crime could be. We're talking threats of violence, possessing weapons, non-consensual conduct of a sexual nature, such as the sharing of images, or being knowingly concerned in one of those designated acts. The legislative change are expected to allow the deportation of offenders at twice the pace, which is good. We're just kicking people out faster than ever.
Great.
Thanks to the Morrison government. With the new rules expected to apply to about 10,000 visa holders. Now, people might have heard about this. The most notable sort of case this relates to, where it gets really particularly sticky, is in regards to our relationship to New Zealand. You have people who come to Australia as little kiddies, maybe at 9 years old. They spend their entire life in Australia. They happen to become criminals. They commit a crime. They go to prison here in Australia. Then once they've served their sentence, they come out and Australia says, Go back to New Zealand, you dirty Kiwi criminal, because we had nothing to do with the conditions that resulted in you committing a crime. You're not our
Yeah.
responsibility. You have to go back and Jacinta will deal with you.
And that'll fix the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll fix it.
Well, this is a question. It's like, if we're talking about safety here, whose safety do we value? And the clear message is like, if we genuinely think that these people pose a threat to society and that's why we need to remove them from Australia, it's like, we don't give a fuck whose safety they now threaten anywhere else in the world.
Yes, well,
Okay.
those New Zealanders can't vote for Australian politicians, either in New Zealand or in Australia either. They're actually denied. So who gives a fuck if they get, stabbed in the face by a criminal?
Yeah.
Not my problem.
Nope.
This new bill that the Morrison government introduced has been backed by the Police Federation of Australia, so you know it's cool,
Always.
but was described by the Law Council of Australia as disproportionate and unnecessary. So, Emerald, why on earth would the government want to introduce a bill that's both disproportionate and unnecessary? What's going on?
Maybe they didn't know. They must have made a mistake. It couldn't, because they never really do that. Oh, unless they're playing a fun game that they want to win.
It's so blatant, right? It's such. I mean, lots of people say this is so desperate. This is so is your heart really in it anymore? Playing this kind of
I know.
culture war bullshit, national scary care campaign.
I'm so tired. Especially because this to me is like the federal equivalent of the tough on crime
Right.
battle in Queensland politics, which is like ever fucking raging and so pointless because it's never actually about safety in any way. We're talking about an offense that theoretically has already happened.
Yeah.
We're never talking about stopping things from happening. We're never talking about actually protecting people. All it is it's like who's tougher on crime or who has the bigger cops with the bigger guns.
Right. I mean, this one's so technical and so far removed, and there's no case, there's no massive case they can point to that's dominated the headlines, for example, that they're trying to capitalize on.
Yeah, even that.
There's nothing really to this. But it must say it is such a sweet spot for the Tories where it's like you can do a soft on crime attack and protecting our borders bullshit.
Yes, it's really just veiled immigration. That's the thing. It's not actually, you're right. The message really is about immigration. It's a thinly veiled anti-immigration policy.
But it's criminals. They're not only are they foreigners, not only are they
Yes.
criminals, they're foreign criminals, April.
Yes.
Together at last.
But I would argue there's a bit of racism in there. There's always some racism.
Of course.
I think all tough on crime, all politics discourse about crime is racist. Honestly, the same in state government, there's always an element of anti-Indigenous racism, and it's about, there's African gangs, fucking nonsense, myth shit.
Absolutely, yes.
So yes, there's a very clear racist element here.
Yeah, so I would say that there is a demonization, a dismissal of white criminals as well, right? Criminals are just terrible, and if you're a conservative, they're just pieces of shit that you can shit on. You don't have to investigate conditions that give rise to people committing crimes or the experience.
Certain types of criminal.
So, certainly, yes. White collar crime, not so much. But white poor people who commit crimes, then fuck them. But there is absolutely an extra racialized element to any immigrant who would come here.
Yeah.
Anyone who commits a crime that wasn't born here or that doesn't have citizenship status. I mean, that's even worse. How dare they? Don't they know we're doing them a favor by letting them in our sweet, sweet borders, and now they commit these motherfucking crimes? So the attacks went really hinged. They went very, very hard. Morrison said the safety of Australians across the country relies on Labor standing up to the Greens and giving our border force the powers they need to deport foreign criminals. He said Christina Keneally wants people who have been convicted of domestic violence to stay in the country because the judge gave them a soft sentence. Oh, those fucking judges.
Fucking judges.
On these issues, keeping Australians safe, border security, they're very serious issues, and Labor just cannot be trusted on these things. They're soft and weak.
Soft and weak.
Unlike the Morrison government, who are hard and strong.
Hard and strong, yeah.
And they really went hard on the Greens, right? Actually, the Greens have been running this sort of mashup of the number of times the Greens were mentioned in Question Time. It sounds like this.
Greens. The Greens. The Greens. The Greens. 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 Greens.
Marsha.
And this comes up a lot. The name of this show is Serious Danger, which comes from a quote from Morrison from 2019 when he said, "I've always found the Greens to be a real serious danger to Australia. The Greens have opposed us on almost every element of national security legislation we've put into the parliament. They have actively worked against the safety of Australians." What do you think about this? Is this a particular attack that Conservatives will run against the Greens specifically that we should care about it? Can people see through it as kind of desperate fear-mongering? What do you reckon?
Oh, I think people can. I think that it maybe works on, I think it helps to harden the opposition of people who are already very opposed to the Greens. I think it really does work with racists and people who are just very anti-immigration. Like, I think it's interesting because I didn't know that was the full quote. And when they say serious danger to Australia, the objection that I think works is just that the Greens are unrealistic. You know, they've never been tested. They haven't held government before, and they just don't really think it could work. But I think specifically being like, because they will loosen our national security laws or they support open borders or something, that's really only something you hear from a tiny minority of people
Right.
who actually care about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's infuriating too, because it's not just they want to unwind national security legislation. They just don't want to increase more powers to the national security state, which already has insane levels of powers. I mean, people have pointed out with this deportation bill, the immigration minister already has huge discretion to make calls about who does and doesn't come into this country on a character test. And
the circumstances in which they come.
Yes. That's a good line. With the Djokovic case, we saw the immigration minister said, "I'm not letting this guy in because there's a chance that his presence might encourage anti-vax sentiment within the community," or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was already there. And when Morrison is talking about, the Greens voting against national security legislation, you look into it and it means, well, it just doesn't want everything to turn into a giant surveillance state and everything handed over to our spy agencies and insane quasi-fascist organizations like fucking Border Force, for God's sake.
Yeah, like the ability to, detain someone and not tell anyone you're detaining them or for why, and just, hold them for multiple days for questioning. Like shit that I think honestly, if the ordinary person knew what they actually meant when they talk about these national security laws, they'd be fucking terrified.
Yeah. And it really does feel like the salience of that stuff has diminished, or at least is nowhere near in the national conversation as it was, unlike in the War on Terror, right? When the Howard government passed fucking sedition laws that basically said you weren't allowed to publish stuff criticising the Australian government because we were at war, even though we hadn't declared war or anyone. We were in the War on Terror, for God's sake. And any measures were deemed necessary in order to combat that looming threat. Now, I mean, the ASIO boss this week sort of said that foreign interference has overtaken the threat of terrorism. We fixed terrorism. Stop worrying about that, everybody. That's done.
Oh, good.
We've got new shit to be terrified of at every single moment.
Yeah. Terrorism over. New kid on the block, foreign interference.
But I do think that stuff is sort of, faded in the presence of people's minds, particularly as there hasn't been a high-profile serious terrorist attack or threat for quite a long time now. So Labor and the Greens have always argued that this kind of deportation power was unnecessary. The immigration minister already has these godlike powers to do stuff. Christina Keneally, the opposition Home Affairs spokesperson, said they've opposed these laws because they could be applied retroactively and people could be deported for trivial offences. But of course, Labor waved the bill through the lower house. So they said, you're not going to wedge us.
Nuh-uh.
We're just going to support your bill. And they said they'd try and amend it in the Senate. Adam Bandt and Andrew Wilkie were the only people who voted against the legislation. Adam saying that Labor was backing a bill from a government that wanted to be above the law. So by pushing it into the Senate, which basically means this deportation bill won't actually come up before the election. It will basically kick down the road. But it was pretty explicit from the immigration minister, Alex Hawke, who was saying this was a test for Labor. Like, we are quite clearly trying to drag them out and make them appear weak on national security.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you think it worked? Do you think that we're going to see a massive swing against Labor in the next poll after this another successful wedge?
Another sweet, sweet wedge. I don't know how much salience or how much impact this has on people's lives, how much they relate to it.
Very little.
I mean, there definitely have been national security elections in the past. 2001 is an obvious example. The coalition went extremely hard on quote-unquote illegal arrivals in 2013 for the election when Tony Abbott came back to power and was, campaigning on stopping the boats, for example. So I don't know. It's not to say that these issues don't have some salience within an election. I don't think they do right now. And the amount of impact that they have and the way they speak to people's lives is certainly overstated.
I do. I think even in those elections where immigration policy has been and like national security and borders have been a big issue in the past, arguably the greater proportion of voters who may have changed their vote on that, it's due to economic concerns, not necessarily safety concerns. I think that sits on top of the discourse about, you know, letting potentially dangerous criminals in. Like, I think that's at the far end of the spectrum of people that this hits. And there's maybe a bit of fear about that. It's really driven by the politicians. But I think mainly it's about, you know, people are worried that there will be too many people and not enough jobs or not enough housing, which obviously is a fallacy.
Yeah.
And I mean, the fact that I was saying to you, Tom, when we were talking about doing the podcast, and you were like, what about this story? And I was like, honestly, I haven't been able to fucking follow it this week. Like, I work in politics. I read the news every day. This shit was just, I was like, nah, can't, like, fucking boring. I don't want to know about it. So do you really think that the average person is like, so you're telling me in contrast to the sentence that is imposed by the judge in accordance with the maximum penalties that are allowed under the legislation. In contrast to that, the immigration minister will be vested with the power to apply the character test in this legislation to the maximum penalty rather than the penalty imposed by the judge. Like, that's going to affect me and my family who can't fucking afford our mortgage or rent.
Yes.
No.
What's the cost of bread?
What is the cost of bread?
But it's classic, right? It's classic shit. I agree. I don't think this tactic worked. It is the sign of a government that is reeking of desperation. And that was also in display in regards to all the bullshit around China this week, right? Or as Donald Trump says, China.
China?
And when this government has nothing, no record to run on, no vision for anything to make ordinary people's lives better, yeah, you just try and terrify people. And we're scared about these foreign powers who are going to come and torture your children. The ASIO boss, Mike Burgess, gave his annual threat assessment speech last week in which he said that foreign interference was now a greater threat to Australia than terrorism. Terrorism's done, everyone. Remember all that? That's done. Moving on.
So last season.
Yeah. Old school, old news. And so then the coalition used this as a chance to attack Labor, saying that Labor was the preferred party of the Chinese Communist Party, which is just like, come on, China doesn't fuck around. China wouldn't deal with the spineless neoliberal agenda of the Australian Labor Party.
Yeah, some mixed messages here. It's like when people try to simultaneously say that the Greens have no power but are also like the most dangerous force in Australian politics.
Double-barreled. Morrison said the Chinese government had picked their horse and he's sitting right there, meaning Anthony Albanese.
A winner.
He's a winner. Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Also described Richard Marles as a Manchurian candidate, which is a pretty extraordinary attack in Parliament. If people are familiar with that film, someone who's brainwashed to try and be a puppet of a foreign government and spread communism. It was a film from the 50s or 60s, I think, and then was remade with Denzel Washington.
I hadn't heard this term before this week, actually.
You've never heard that?
No.
Yeah. And there was uproar at that. Morrison then withdrew it. I love it in Parliament how you can just like call someone a dog piece.
I know, it's so funny.
Dog shit piece of cunt.
Okay, I withdraw.
And then I withdraw.
You're a fucking loser cunt. I withdraw.
Yeah, it's good fun. Then there was also this talk about this puppeteer figure that ASIO boss Mike Burgess mentioned, who'd been involved, who had connections to a foreign government, was trying to influence candidates in the upcoming election. Labor Senator Kimberly Kitching used parliamentary privilege to say, hey, do you mean Dr. Chow Chuk Wing, this guy who's donated millions of dollars to both sides of Australian politics? For the record, Chow Chuk Wing denies that. He's sued a whole bunch of people for defamation and won, and they've implied that he's been bribing political leaders and such.
Okay.
So that's been flying around there too. So we're terrified of China as well, and they're, it's like old school 1890s cartoons of them being octopuses with tentacles, like reaching over everywhere and strangling our democracy. And the Labor response to these attacks is very interesting. It isn't to point them out as baseless, ridiculous, xenophobic, xenophobic attacks and trying to point out the hysteria and say, this is ridiculous, what are you doing? They're saying, no.
No, you guys.
You're the ones working for China.
Yeah, not us. No, you are actually 1,000 times infinity you. I know you are. You said you are.
But what am I? Anthony Albanese has labelled Prime Minister Scott Morrison the real Manchurian candidate for weaponising national security.
Fucking got him.
So this is the argument that, if it's not partisan, and the ASIO boss did clarify that this foreign interference affects both sides of politics. And they're saying by sowing all this division and by politicizing national security, quote unquote, then you're doing China's bidding, to the point where Julian Hill did a TikTok where he's basically saying that Scott Morrison is politicizing national security for his own political purposes. He's playing right into the hands of authoritarian leaders. This is precisely what countries like the Chinese Communist Party, like Russia, this is exactly what they're trying to do. So now it's gone the total other way.
I don't understand that argument.
Just as fucking paranoid.
Is he saying by like sowing division between the Labour and the Liberal parties? Like,
yes,
that's a problem. That is the aim of the Chinese Communist Party. Like,
we were all getting along fine, and then Russia and China came along.
As we should be. Yeah, our major parties should be on exactly the same side. But like, this is the thing. I mean, obviously, the influence of, you know, massive fucking billionaires and corporations and foreign governments who like potentially are influencing these politicians in sus ways, that's a real thing.
Yes.
But it's not the fact that they're Chinese that is a problem.
Nope.
I mean, and there's even the McCarthyism element to it. It's like just to point out that like this is not a real communist regime. But anyway. Yeah. You know,
it's total red baiting across the board, yes, and it's remarkable. It's just blatantly racist sometimes. I mean, Dr. Chow Chak Wing is an Australian citizen, okay, and yes, he sucks. He's given $4 million to both sides of politics since 2004, and that sucks. That sucks because he's a billionaire, right? Gina Reinhardt gets a fucking Order of Australia or whatever, but this guy's terrible because he's influencing quote unquote Australian politics by giving shitloads of money. So maybe we should get rid of those laws across the board, and that nobody who has billions of dollars should be able to funnel money, which is interfering with the democratic process. I'm sorry. And I don't care whether that comes from a foreign power or from fucking Gina Reinhardt. It's still really bad across the board.
Yeah.
But also we should push back against this idea that national security can't be politicized, or is it it's something that is beyond politics?
Yeah.
Again, these ideas of like safety are brought in, right? So, hey, we all want Australians to be safe, as if that isn't a political question, and whether everything that's introduced under a national security guise isn't ideological or doesn't have some political ramifications that we should debate about way more than we do. We don't debate whether Australia should go to war. These national security legislation are barely debated, and the Labor Party certainly has no appetite to try and make a stand for human rights against a surveillance state or anything like that. That's all just taken off the table. And Labor is adamant in saying that there's no difference between us and the coalition when it comes to stuff like, pushing back against the national security state or going to fucking war, for example.
Yes, there are lots of, kind of layers to this. I mean, because this came, the head of ASIO or something actually did an interview, which is quite unusual and remarkable, the way that he explicitly came out and said, my department or my agency is not here to be politicized. And I think a lot of people kind of latched onto that. But really, for me, it's like, what do you mean by national security? And what do you mean by I get pissed off when anyone is like, oh, this is above politics. This should be beyond politics. Let's not politicize this.
Incorrect.
Fucking bullshit. Everything is political. If it affects people's lives, like, why are we doing politics if not to elucidate the political problems and a political solution? Like,
yes,
but at the same time, to me the problem is that they identify this kind of nebulous national security issue and policy. It's like, what are we actually concerned about here? Are we concerned about people being in danger? Are we concerned about human rights abuses? Are we concerned about, the accumulation of capital and the exploitation of workers? Are we concerned about, like, what do we mean when we talk about national security? Because if you just are using national security as this nebulous kind of catch-all that you say is about the security of people, when really you're just being fucking racist and you want to do anti-immigration and anti-crime bullshit, then that sucks.
And normally national security means, in the foreign policy space, is just doing whatever the fuck America wants. And I must say, again, another reason I like the Greens, he said on their Greens podcast, is the Greens are the one party that's prepared to actually criticize that and say, hey, maybe this US-Australia alliance sucks a bit and we should have autonomy over our, foreign policy direction, and that maybe we shouldn't do everything that America does because, and again, this also feeds into a bigger discussion about the situation with Russia and Ukraine at the moment and the insane warmongering around that particular issue, when US intelligence said they're definitely going to invade this week, and then they didn't, and now Biden's going, it could still happen. Hang on to hope, everybody. We could still have a war in our hands. But just no one's talking about the fact The US took us into an illegal war based on an absolute lie.
Mhm.
John Howard was responsible for that decision, still venerated as a leader and genius of the Liberal Party and a great leader of Australia, resulting in a war that led to the death of estimated 500,000 to 1 million people, okay?
Yeah.
Like just absolute travesty, devastation that we should run a million miles away from and learn the lessons from our history. And the Greens, I think, are consistently the party that is willing to stand up and call that shit out, as is Andrew Wilkie as well, who's a good independent on this shit as well. So
Yeah.
that bipartisan consensus around this stuff is terrifying, and it shuts down any kind of debate or stops us having any kind of serious interrogation of our role in the world and the kind of horrible shit that Western imperial forces are doing here and overseas.
Yeah, and questioning those alliances, like I don't claim to be an expert on geopolitics, and I often feel like I don't quite fully understand, and I don't think any of us can, given the barriers in, like, if you're not actually there in China, you don't really know what the fuck is going on. But I was listening to this podcast that I really like. It's about, US politics run by a bunch of hillbillies, called the Trillbilly Workers Party podcast. And they were talking about this whole thing of, what's the position on China, and pointing out that what's the position on they're from the States. They're like, a lot of the concerns that are raised about human rights abuses and, racism and even ethnic cleansing and treatment of minorities in China under that current government are also happening in the fucking US. The prison system as a tool for effectively continuing, massive institutional racism and violence against Black people and people of color, deporting children, all of that, those are massive human rights abuses. But isn't it funny how we're not as expected to have a quote unquote position on the problems with other countries or just countries that are predominantly white, but we always have to have a position on non-white regimes,
right?
Maybe it's a bit whataboutism, and I don't mean to dismiss genuine. Obviously there are concerns with a whole bunch of other regimes across the world, but I do think it's interesting, and it does show the part that race and xenophobia plays in this discussion when we remember that the discussion is very different when it comes to what's happening in countries like the US or the UK or France or wherever.
Yeah.
Or Australia.
Yes. Yeah, look, I'm similar. I don't follow the ins and outs of it all intimately, but I think the one thing I've picked up over the past couple of years of trying to get my head around some of this stuff is that you should always detect bullshit when you see people talking about another country as if they're another species, right? As if China and Russia aren't countries full of human beings who will act in their rational self-interest, okay? And in the same way that we expect to be able to act in our own interest as a nation or as a society and assert our own sovereignty and all that all that applies for them too. But the double standard we have is we're the goodies, they're the baddies. Everything they're doing is evil. You can never take them at face value. We can't exhibit any kind of trust or put ourselves in their shoes because they just think differently. Their brains are made of different chemicals or whatever. All that is such bullshit that is used to justify the continuing US consensus on pretty much every question that America gets to do whatever the fuck they want and everybody else has to be held to whatever standards the US has settled on that day.
Yeah, and when we have a massively biased and concentrated media and a borderline authoritarian regime, when you look at somewhere like, the US, for example, it's not as big a problem, is it?
It's so weird. Yeah, it's all fine.
Please make some noise now. And welcome Mandy Nolan.
We're chatting to Mandy Nolan today, who is a comedian, a raging feminist, and the Greens candidate for Richmond. So welcome, Mandy. Hello.
Thank you, Emerald. Thank you, Tom.
Hi.
I don't know if you remember, Mandy, but you actually coached me through, I'm sure, one of the most moving comedic experiences of your life when I was about 13, 14. I did a kids comedy. I did a stand-up performance at the end of the workshop, which I'm sure you've never forgotten.
Oh my!
What? Is this Class Clowns? You did Class Clowns?
I don't know if it had a name, but it was at Bangalore.
Yes. Oh my God. You just made me lactate. My uterus stirred for the child that I knew for a second. I do remember you.
Aww.
Do you know, when I saw your name, Emerald Moon, I thought she is one of ours.
Yes. So that's my segue into, I'm like, that's right. I'm from Mullum, if you hadn't realised, where you also live.
Oh.
So yes, a fellow Byron Shire traveller. So very excited.
And a fellow comedian. Sorry, Maddie, I was not aware of
You
this.
weren't
What
aware?
material were you doing, man? What were your jokes?
I honestly don't remember. All I know is it was like something about my dad and some stupid shit that he'd done.
Classic.
It didn't kickstart my fantastic career into comedy. That's just starting now, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Courtesy of this podcast.
But she was good.
Yeah, thank you, Mandy.
It was one of those things because I started teaching kids comedy because having 5 kids of my own, I actually really hated the way schools shut kids are natural activists. They go,
so
they
true.
seek out justice. They go, that's not fair. You're a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? And institutions go, you can't do that. That's disrespectful, and it shuts them down. And I went, fuck that. Comedy is a really great place for kids to go, you know what, you have an opinion, it's really valid, and you should question everything, and you should do that. And in the end, I didn't even care that it wasn't funny. I was just thought this is a great way to teach kids critical thinking.
That's a really good point.
Is that what you thought while you were watching Emerald do comedy? Going,
Yeah, this is
look,
not
at least
funny,
she's learning,
but you know, maybe it'll be helpful for
Emerald, I said, she's not funny, but she is going to fucking kick goals in the future. And look at you. You're a little disruptor.
Still not funny. Kicking goals.
Tell me about that, Mandy, because like you and I've gigged with you a fair bit over the years. We've crossed paths once or twice, and you've always been hilarious on stage. And there's been a raw, angry, feminist energy to it that's always hilarious as well, talking about your domestic life, the role of women in society and such. But I guess I wouldn't have pegged you as a number one political comedian, or whether you're really passionate about politics and changing the world and issues and that kind of stuff. I guess I just didn't put those 2 and 2 together. And now here you are as a Greens candidate. How the fuck did that happen?
I know. Do you know how it happened? Because I started out as a feminist comedian. I started in Brisbane when I was at uni. As you know, very much I was in the International Socialists for a while. Then I joined the Anarchists. And I've always been really, really political. I was a full-on feminist. In fact, people were they were gagging for feminist comics back in the 80s. They couldn't get enough. That's an irony. So I suppose foundationally, I have a really deep political core, but I realised after years of being booed off stage and having stuff thrown at me, to get cut through, you had to look like you were one of them. That is how you could come through. As far as the political aspect in my local community here, I've been very engaged, and I have a very different role as a regional comic to probably most comics in the city, in that, you know, I've stood at the front of rallies, I've led marches, I've instigated actions, I've written to local and political issues, and I don't need to take that on stage in a comedy room sometimes. Like I'll keep my values there, but you won't always see me on stage doing overtly political comedy, but everything is political. Being a woman standing in that space is a political act.
Yeah.
Supporting other people to stand in that space is too. So I've had this sort of private part of my life which has nothing to do with comedy, but has everything to do with engagement in community, where activism, you know, issues around First Nation politics, around the environment, around, of course, feminism, and, you know, and very much issues around justice. I am like a hippie that doesn't own hemp pants. I'm a hippie at heart, but I just can't wear the outfit.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think that's kind of good. But I've never believed that how we live in our society is how it has to be. I just believe that's part of this massive propaganda of a capitalist patriarchal system that, you know, privileges a very elite group of people and says this is how it has to be. This is the natural order of things. That is just bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
It is bullshit. Very often for me, it's often hard to call that out. Look, I perform for areas where it's full of National Party supporters. And one of the best things I've had lately is people are going, one guy is a plumber around here, and he goes, it's hard to tell you this because we're a dyed-in-the-wool National Party family, but I'm going to vote for you. Even my dad is going to vote for you. Like, you kind of go, and in a way, I think the use of planning, you know, what I've got in front of people in my community anyway is if you're able to call stuff out that's unfair, if people can see that you're not a bullshit artist, there's an integrity in that they respect, because it's just not out there in our system at the moment.
Yeah.
I was thinking the other day, the two-party system has to go. It's such a binary system, isn't it? It's so heterosexual.
Queer the Australian Parliament. That's right.
I know.
I mean, I think it's interesting because people have this idea, right, that Byron is like full of celebrities. That's the idea that people have now of Byron, which fucking sucks, by the way. But people then talk about you as a quote unquote celebrity candidate. But it's different because you're not that kind of celebrity, but you are, I would say, a household name in Byron. You have a weekly, like a soapbox in the free weekly paper, The Echo, that goes all across the Shire. My mum, regularly sends me the clippings. Everyone kind of knows who you are.
I love your mum.
Yes, my mum is absolutely great. I love her too. She listens, so hi, mum. But yeah, like that I think is very different to being a celebrity. It's being an actual mainstay in a community. That's very important. That's why I think you kind of have a bit of an edge.
Yeah, like celebrity is such a shit word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I've said, don't call me a celebrity, because celebrity is just someone that, it's such a horrible word. It's vacuous, and I think it's part of the problem, and there are people who are celebrities. I'm definitely not that. What I am is a very visible, loud, probably high profile. I always say I'm a bit like the big prawn.
Yes, perfect. Beautiful big prawn. Yeah.
And that's why I did a campaign shirt where it has a picture of me in my underwear riding a giant prawn, and it says Mandy for PM.
It's beautiful.
It's so
This is what we need.
Really daggy. I think what we're looking at is people know who I am. So it's really important when you're running into an election. I can push forward on the Greens, brand and everything that comes with what it means to be in the Greens. But I also have really good name recognition.
Yeah.
And in politics, that's really important. So that's been really great. But yeah, that celebrity word's just so shitty, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
it is.
I know. I mentioned the fact that you have this weekly soapbox in The Echo, and you've had that for years and years. A lot of people in the Shire read The Echo. Like, that's a very influential paper. And I was looking, I think your most recent one was one about, it was the No More Nice Girls article. Is that right?
Yes, it was.
Which I wanted to talk about. I'll read just a very brief quote from the article to kind of orient folks, but I want to hear, your thought process when you were writing this. But the article says, you say, being a nice girl is a cancer. It's a cancer to our agency. It's patriarchy's Stockholm syndrome. We're Little Red Riding Hood being told to smile at wolves. Did I ask my daughters to do this? I didn't have to. Dominant culture demands it. Every young woman wants to be thought of as a nice girl. So in this last year, when young women like Brittany Higgins and Grace Tame have raised their voice, when they've held men and the system to continuous account, I've watched them in awe.
Yes.
Yeah. Did the Grace Tame and Brittany Higgins speech kind of inspire this article?
What they've been saying and that they're raising their voice is phenomenal. But what really hit home for me was was how disruptive not smiling, and that's been kind of quite well it's been written about, and we've had a conversation about it, but I don't think it's gone deep enough, because it's not just about the smile. It's about consent in a coercive system.
Yeah.
To smile is to give consent. It's to shut your mouth, to not tell your story. Do not make trouble. Let us get through this. Don't upset your dad. Don't bring it up now. It's why victims wait 30 years to tell their story. It's why they live in shame and end up with mental health issues, why they live this, whether you live with this, because your truth is going to be disruptive. And we live in a system. It's why we don't tax billionaires. It's why rich people do so well. It's why perpetrators do so well. We live in a system that facilitates perpetrators at every level. That's what colonialism is. That's what patriarchy is. That's what oppression is. That's what bigotry is. That's what locking up people offshore is. And when women don't smile, it's kind of like you can feel the boat was rocking. It's going, fuck, you didn't smile at the Prime Minister?
Yeah, the Prime Minister. I mean, he's the Prime Minister.
You have broken a social contract here.
Show some respect, I thought that was
You ruined my photo opportunity that was carefully arranged to try and help me out.
Yeah.
Did you see how her body, but it wasn't just a smile. I love the way it went. She did this kind of weird thing with her body where have you ever seen someone touch something gross? Like,
recoil.
It's like when you touch slime or something. It's like, ew.
Yeah, which is the correct response.
Yeah, she had a full physical, like, you're gross body reaction, which no one's talked about the body reaction. It's all been around the smile, but I secretly love that.
Yeah.
It kind of really hit home, and it reminded me of that we are expected to give consent through our smiles. We're expected to lie.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very confusing, what does justice mean then?
Yeah. And that's why I actually thought it was really interesting going back to when you were saying why you would do those workshops with kids, because you saw the way that in school and in a lot of other aspects of their lives growing up, they're told to, shut up and not speak out. And I was thinking about, as Grace Tame says, how that fosters a culture of silence and can prevent kids from disclosing stuff like sexual assault or sexual abuse. And it's interesting you actually have that announced because, I read your article and it was mostly focusing on women's experience in a patriarchal society. And that was that's been, I think, that's the idea that a lot of people have of Grace Tame, is that it's about her as a woman, similar to, Brittany Higgins. But then she comes out and says, it's not just about that. It's not about women versus men. It's about a culture of silencing in institutions to protect powerful people. And the same thing happened when, she said that someone had called her from the government saying, don't criticize the PM in your speech. And they say, okay, we'll investigate who made that call. And she says, that's not the fucking problem. The problem is that they felt they had to make the call. And that's because we have a system that, as you say, privileges incredibly wealthy, powerful people. It's a class-based analysis. It's a race-based analysis, as well as being about gender.
Absolutely. And it is absolutely true. That is what it is. One of the problems when you do political jokes, Tom, you will know this too, is that it's hard to do a political joke when you have to educate the audience to start with about what you're talking about.
Yes.
That's why, I love what you do because I just gave up. And I went, I'm going to keep this simple. I can't do a 101 before we start. Every time you talk about quotas, and that's quotas across the board to get representation, we do not have representative government in this country.
Yeah.
We have a democracy, but the way it works and the way society works is you cannot have representative government when people are marginalised in your community. They do not have access to be representative, to even get to there, to be voted for by their communities. So we think we have in our democracy, but we have to free up a whole lot of stuff so that people can get through. And that's the idea of a quota system, is that you start to open pathways and go, okay, there are people here. As soon as you say quota, the merit argument comes in.
Yeah.
And you're going, you don't think you work on a quota system already, dickhead? It is a quota system. You get one person through from this to represent you. You get one person. It's already a quota system. And we know that a lot of those guys don't get through on merit. They get through because they've got mates.
Yeah.
There must be a word for that's where their merit is.
Of course. Yeah, it's not merit.
Or they've got support, from very strong corporate bases or donations, which comes in. But so I did this joke where I went, okay, let's just forget that. Let's forget, okay, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do the quotas to let, all these other groups in. But let's just set one quota. We only need one. And we just set a quota about how many white cis men we're prepared to accept in the system. We just lower the percentage. We just go,
to a representative level.
Yeah, we've reached the 20%, which we believed is truly representative of your groups in the community. And then we just open it up for everybody else. People with disabilities, women and people of colour, non-binary people, everybody. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine what your country would look like?
Yeah, this is the thing though, because I'm conflicted about quotas, to be honest, because especially when we're just talking about quotas for women or based on gender. And I'm like, look, there are a shitload of women in that parliament who I don't believe should be there because they have terrible politics and they're not passing policies that benefit women. Even Julia Gillard, who a lot of people talk about as the shining example of getting a woman in as the PM, passed changes to social security payments that fucked over single women on, you know, on benefits. And
Yes, Emerald. She was a girl boss. What don't you understand about
she was a
that?
girl boss. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, it's not just that, you know, it's also about mobilizing people on a class basis to implement a platform that's genuinely transformative. And that's where it's like, yeah, I think it's fantastic that you as a person and your identity is not like politicians. But what's more important to me is that you want to build homes for, you know, for women and for everyone, or that, you know, you want to address rape culture and you want to, you know, make childcare free and all these other things that will benefit not only women, but start to break down the structural barriers that fuck women and people of color and poor people over in every aspect of their lives.
I hope that's part of opening the doors, which I would call for everyone else to have true representation, because poverty and lack of access to, you know, a just way of living or being able to complete education to a level that a more affluent person can is what holds people back, you know, and living in a system that or coming from, you know, or being locked up.
Yes.
You know, as part of a refugee family, traumatized by a system and not actually making it into the community for 10 or 12 years. I would hope that we can actually move forward in that in the future as we hobble forward, that we do have representative government, that we do have just a cross-section of people from across our community that we can raise up voices, because I think we'll just have a much better country. I think we'll have a much better system. I think it will be more just. I just think we can't get rid of this idea. It's kind of like we've always worshipped rich people. Do you know that thing?
Oh, yeah, because we think that they're rich, so they're good.
You know, you go to a party and after someone leaves, they go, oh, they own such and such and such and such. And people do that. I go, I don't give a fuck what they own. You know, they're boring. They're so boring.
I mean, yeah, as Emerald was saying, you're running against a woman, right? Like the sitting MP is Justin Elliott, so that's a woman. So you've got two women for the Greens and Labor competing for this particular seat.
Yep.
Yeah, there are specific tangible policies that Greens have in their platform when it comes to women and gender equity.
Should we roll that? This is the part of the show where we list the Greens policies after looking at the website. So run that, whatever music accompanies that, Mike.
The Greens are talking about $1 billion a year for domestic violence frontline services, $477 million for a 4-year rollout of Our Watch's respectful relationships education in public schools, so consent education as well, running on that. The closing the gender pay gap, support women-led small businesses, free childcare, obviously very important, fairer paid parental leave, and implement all the respect at work recommendations that Greens are pushing for, which was a report that was handed down by Kate Jenkins, right?
Yeah. That is the world I want to live in. See, that's really good. What I love about the Greens is we don't go in halfway. We go in.
Yeah.
We don't go in piddling with pathetic little commitments to things. We go in with a very fast way to create real change quickly.
The world we actually want to see, you know?
Yeah, because who's got time to wait? Do you want to wait another generation, Emerald? I'm 54. You know, I've got 5 kids. I have 4 daughters. Do I have to wait to be a great-grandmother before we start seeing?
No time.
You're going like, no, you know, let's get some real change. You know, those kind of commitments. And there's also commitments to I think like 1 million houses to look at public and social housing over the next 20 years.
Especially in Byron.
Yeah.
And, you know, older women, fastest growing homeless population, I understand. So it's like...
We have this massive deficit in social and community housing over the last 10, 15 years. And I don't think there's a coincidence that at the same time we started to use the property market as a way to invest and to kind of create impressive financial portfolios.
Yeah.
You know, that interest rates went down. People's interest in acquiring properties not as homes but as a way to actually profiteer. It just became...
They're assets. The homes have become assets.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that's what housing became. And we're having to almost reclaim the narrative about what housing actually is.
Yeah, an actual home for people to live in, you know, maybe a crazy idea, but...
I'm old enough to remember a time when people didn't talk about real estate.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Those halcyon days.
I know. You never talked about... You wouldn't go out and talk about real estate. There were not shows on TV about zhuzhing your house up for sale.
Right.
I mean, I think it shows you it's the pointy end of a neoliberal fucking disaster.
Yeah.
And if it keeps going, right as it's going, as we know with the beautiful model of perpetual growth, eventually, if you've ever played Monopoly, about 80% of Australia will be homeless.
Yeah.
There will be a massive vacancy, all waiting for people to have holidays on short-term holiday letting platforms, and a very small amount of people will own all the property.
Yeah.
It's because the system doesn't work. Like you're going, it just doesn't work. And that's what social housing does.
Yeah.
Innovating our commitment to what community and social housing looks like. How do you give people equity in their housing? How do you grow with families? Look at the very different types of housing requirements. You know, not everyone wants a 4-bedroom house. You know, not everyone's a family with 2 kids. You know, there's different ages, different ways of having relationships, everything. And that should be reflected in a more modern society in our housing. Once we actually do that, we're going to cap the growth on the private market. It has to.
Yes.
And that's sensible.
Yes, and stop pretending like the private market is going to deliver the fucking answers, because we've given them their chance to deliver housing. You know, they're now the predominant provider of housing, theoretically. They're failing.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a fucking housing crisis. And so when developers, and I see this happen in Byron especially, and it pisses me off, these massive developers who own all this land in a place like Byron and are the ones driving up the rent and the prices, then they come and they're like, oh, I'm going to build, I'm going to add some affordable housing to my portfolio as a write-off. I can do this. We don't need the government to build social housing. I'll solve it.
I know.
No fucking way. You are the problem. You need to fuck off. And we need to get back to, housing as something that's not run by the private market, because you had your chance, you failed.
Yeah, it's kind of like being rescued by the perpetrator.
Yes, absolutely.
You're going to go, look, I've just raped you. I was going to murder you, but I might take you out of the boot and take you home if you're not. Like, it kind of got you going.
Yeah, aren't I good?
You cannot be rescued by someone who perpetrates the harm to make a profit. They have no interest in providing. That was a very harsh metaphor, but I'm going to stick with it.
I was just going to say.
It was harsh, but we're here now.
I'd love to see you in a debate, right? Comparing the property industry to rapists and kidnappers. I think it would cut through. You'd get headlines.
Well, it kind of is like that though, Tom. Access to housing and housing security, knowing where you are going to live for X amount of time, knowing that where you're going to live has longevity. It's also about looking at sort of a whole lot of reform around tenants' rights as well.
Yes.
It underpins our capacity to thrive. It underpins
our livelihood.
I really believe so much anxiety, depression, mental health issues around substance use and addiction. So much could be addressed. Not everything, but so it just underpins everything, on that base level of people's well-being.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got that, you're just not going to get to that next level. If you're living in your car, or if you're going from house to house, the chance for you to slip into homelessness, to slip into mental health, kind of issues, to slip into substance use is really high because you're so vulnerable. I think you perpetuate huge harm on your community when you keep people out of housing. And I don't think we ever hold our governments to account in the way we should about the harm.
Yes.
Because it takes time to show. It's not like this. It's not happening. I did make a hard metaphor because it's instant.
Yeah.
And it's violent. And there is a violence in taking homes away.
Yes.
Have a look at what happened to our First Nation communities when their home was taken from them. That violence that we have perpetrated continues. So one of the biggest challenges that I've had, which is probably different to any other election, is been the conversation around vaccination. And a lot of our very left wing, and I would say a lot of my swing, because I need a 5% swing, there are votes from my swing that are sitting within the vaccine hesitant and vaccine resistant kind of communities. The community's become very polarised here. Our peace, love community, the language is violent. The pathway for communication's not there. My job is to try and pull it back to go, okay, yes, I am pro-vaccination. I do think it's the best solution because I'm part of a party that believes in science. I believe in science. And until science shows me that this is not the best way forward, then yes, I do back that. But I have to find a way to pull across the conversation. You'll never convince someone who's against vaccination to vaccinate, although they will sneak off and get the Novavax. Not tell anyone. We have a lot of vaccinated anti-vaxxers here too, let me tell you.
Right. Okay. That's very interesting to know.
Yeah, but we have to get them across because, you're going to have to get it back to climate change. You have to go, okay, let's talk about the fact that you're still not in housing and the parties that you're going to vote for. People here, like hardcore hippies and environmental activists, have started saying they're going to vote, in the Senate for one nation.
Because of vaccine mandate positions.
Yeah.
Right.
And right now, those ultra-right-wingers are hugely dangerous. They are making the most of this moment to pull people across from the left, and people who are naturally and very understandably anti-government. They're vulnerable community. They've been pulled across to the right wing, and suddenly they're no longer questioning how they vote, what they support, what their real values are. And that's the conversation we have to keep having all the time leading up to this election is, there are parties like the Clive Palmer United, like Craig Kelly, like Pauline Hanson, that are just taking advantage of a vulnerable community to their own political ends. They have a strong right-wing agenda. And, okay, they don't support the vaccine mandates. Are you prepared to handhold with someone who voted against same-sex marriage? Are you prepared to handhold for someone that tried to do a deal with the NRA to undermine Australian political laws around gun control?
Yep.
Are you prepared to handhold with someone who doesn't believe in treaty for First Nations, who believes in locking up, refugees in mandatory detention? Are you prepared to do that just for the sake of backing someone who says they're not going to back mandatory vaccination?
I have no idea how you could convince those people to change their vote on that respect, and whether you probably can't. No,
there's no convincing. What you can do is try and shift the conversation just about what else.
Yeah.
About the bigger part of the conversation. And very often they don't know where the preference flow is going to go anyway. So, you might be voting for that, but the preference flow goes back to the coalition. So you've kind of just, you've shot yourself in the foot. Well, you can't, luckily, in Australia because we've got good gun laws.
Not if the NRA gets involved through One Nation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Mandy. Enjoy your campaign. Have you got a launch coming up soon?
I've got heaps of launches.
Heaps of launches. Have you got something that you want to plug?
We've got a kick-off, which apparently is different to a launch. That's on Sunday.
Oh.
That's to get the volunteers all out because they're going to get them all excited about getting out there and taking it on. And then on the 21st and 22nd of March, Adam Bant's going to be up here and we've got a big launch then.
Okay.
Because I've got a couple of places to go. And then I think in about a week after that, I've got 3 launches to start.
Jeez.
And then you just keep launching, apparently.
Just never stop launching.
Just launch and launch and launch. We're going sky high, baby.
Well, should we launch you all over the place? Yeah, we'll put the campaign a link in the show notes so people can get involved if they like. If you're in the seat of Richmond, Green's primary vote of 20%. Obviously, there are a lot of people in the general area who would be very sympathetic and open to the ideas that Greens are putting out there.
They will.
And campaigning hard against them with a star, celebrity, high-profile candidate, whatever you want to call her, as Mandy Nolan.
Big prawn.
Who will tell you exactly what she thinks and cut through the bullshit. I think that's a very good thing for the party and very good for the people of Richmond. If you want to get involved, check out that campaign link that we'll put in the show notes and help Mandy out.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy.
Thanks, Mandy Nolan.
Yay.
I'm not voting, but I'd vote for the Greens.
I'm not voting, but I vote for the Greens. Voting's just a bit too mainstream for me, you know what I say?
Ring, ring.
Hello?
Who's calling?
What?
It's the action, the call to action. This week, it was good actually, Tom.
Okay.
Mandy says I'm funny, so fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
This week, you should try to go to an event, calendarize an event. There are so many fucking Greens events, campaign events happening across the country at the moment. I think I heard someone say it's probably 100 days or less than 100 days until the election. So now's the time to get cracking. If you go to greens.org.au/events, they have events listed there from all over the country. You can filter it by your state or territory. They've got door knocking, they've got phone banking, they've got training events, they've got launches. I saw a free meditation class for one of the ACT candidates, which is extremely embarrassing Greens areas. But if that's your thing, go fucking do it. More power to you.
Maybe if more politicians meditated, we wouldn't have these kind of geopolitical tensions and all this paranoia around China,
Wow, so true. Yeah, why can't we just be a little bit more zen? Including, things like Mandy was saying she's got a bunch of events coming up. We'll put her website in there as well. But wherever your local campaign is, I'm sure you can find an event to go to. Go do that. And please, 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 please help us win more MPs so that we can have less fucking losers in there who are only interested in playing some weird game that they think is going to help them win more seats, but is really just further alienating an electorate who are so fucking sick of politics and are probably going to go absolutely insane if we don't do something quickly. So yeah, go to an event.
Great pitch. Remember too, you don't have to be a member of the Greens to help out as well. I think some people think like, yeah, you need to sign up or something. You don't. You can just donate your time or do anything at all. Would be great. There's one guy in my local campaign in the seat of Fraser who's his whole thing is he just delivers the yard signs and placards, right? Like that's the way that he helps. He dedicates his time to drive around and tie them up with cable ties and all that kind of thing. So like those kind of small, simple, little bit boring things are really, really helpful for the campaign, so keep that in mind.
They really are. Serious Danger is produced by Michael Griffin and made possible with the help of the Green Institute. You can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening now. Please do that right after you finish listening. You can support the show on Patreon or follow us at Serious Danger AU on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. For all the info, you can just head to seriousdangerpod.com. Or you can email us questions, comments, ideas at hello@seriousdangerpod.com.
If you're a Chinese billionaire, we'd very much appreciate your money, and we will do your will as a podcast and as a political party. Please get in touch. And, again, shout outs to Avi Yemeni. Good luck on your fight for justice and truth and exposing at PR Guy 17.
Again, this is not an official Greens podcast.
No,
good night, bye.
Serious Danger Australia.
I hope that I've now impressed you enough that you think that I'm funny, as well as, being a plucky little kid, because that was the purpose of this interview.
Emerald is a funny woman.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you hear that, Mum?
Do you think I'm funny, Mandy? Do you think I'm funny?
No.
Am I a funny,
Say
strong,
Tom's not
independent
funny.
woman?
Would you say I'm funnier than Tom, Mandy?
Do you know,
Are you a feminist?